We don't need to have the whole road illuminated for us to get to where we need to go.
Welcome back to Change and the Market, your weekly look at the changing real estate market. I'm Brian Chiligo, and I'm joined once again by our resident real estate market expert, Chris Masiello. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, Brian, good to be with you, and good to be with everybody else. So, ready to go.
Awesome. Let's get into it. As always, we have our three main questions, and we're just going to jump right into our first question. What has changed in the last 7 days in the housing market?
Well, it's fluid now, so it's always kind of fun to watch. So a few things. So interest rates dropped again a little bit. So 30-year fixed rates about 6.5%. And the National Association of Realtors just put out one of their annual surveys about who's buying in the market. It was really interesting to watch the change this year versus last year. So this time last year, about 36% of all home buyers were first-time buyers. This year, it's down to 24%, and you can just see that the interest rate environment has really impacted, really first-time home buyers. Now, we talked about last week. We said, somewhere between a third and half of all buyers are cash, and there's lots of reasons for that. Some estate planning for parents and generational wealth giving and things like that. So, so the first-time home buyers have been impacted, which makes sense. Given that they tend to be more mortgage dependent. And we're starting to see inventory levels come up a little bit, and which again is not much of a surprise. But when we talk about like a little bit, like we're talking a little bit, right? Like this time last year we might have had 30 days supply, and this time this year we've got 60 days of supply. But still, though, if you can handle the rate environment, this is the time to be thinking about getting into the market because there's more inventory and there will be lower interest rates coming in the future. One other thing, Brian, which has been kind of floating around now, because there's talk of recession, is about foreclosures. And I want to kind of remind everybody that this economic cycle we're in today really has nothing in common with the cycle of '08, which was heavily foreclosure based. The underpinning of the economy is entirely different, and lending is entirely different. So if this really interesting statistic. So the average credit score, the median credit score for a borrower today is 788. The median credit score in the whole country is 714.
Yeah.
So here's the difference between today and 14 years ago. Much stronger underwriting. So if people are sitting on the sidelines thinking that there's going to be this flood of foreclosures because we're going to have a recession or the housing market's going to turn upside down, it's really unlikely, because the average credit score, the low credit score, 14 years ago was 550.
Wow.
So that's an entirely different consumer.
Yeah.
A 550 credit score versus a 788. So, people like looking at the differences between, 2014, 14 years ago, 2008 versus today. That's the big difference, is that not a lot of inventory and very strong underwriting criteria.
All right. So we touched on lots of different things there, but how should people take this new information that we've kind of, that you just kind of recapped for us over the past week, and how should they utilize that information in their business?
Yeah, good question, Brian. So, it's like everything else. It's about kind of the situational awareness, understanding where you are. If you've been working with buyers in particular that have been struggling to find the right property, now's a great time to get them in. They can be shopping around for. Also, instead of a 30-year fixed rate, they can be shopping around for a 3, 5, or 7-year adjustable rate mortgage. That's a little bit lower. You might find that actually under 6%. And I think what we're going to find too, by the way, is that the tipping point is 6%. Once rates are predominantly below 6%, I think people are going to come back out of the woodwork again. So the opportunity right now is to be working with those buyers who have been maybe a little inventory challenged or selection challenged, and really working with them to get them into the market and work with them on their wants and needs. Now, there's a difference between a need and a want, right?
Yeah.
A want's aspirational, a need's a must-have. Mm-hmm. So again, thinking about price point, interest rates a little bit higher, so it might affect their buying power. Maybe the seller would consider helping them, lower their interest rate with, maybe some closing credits or things like that. So, use this time wisely, because there is business being done, and it just requires just a little bit of creativity.
Awesome. So kind of just shifting focuses now from the business side of things to the personal side, how should we take the change that we've seen in the last week and handle that in our day-to-day personal lives?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I was kind of doing the research for the week. What really grasped me was that you're just seeing these like little incremental shifts, right?
Yeah.
And about, like we're just talking about, like with home, like the percent of first-time buyers this year versus last year, right?
Right.
And these incremental shifts, think about it in terms of like driving your car at night. You could drive your car all night, only seeing maybe 100 to 200 feet in front of you, and you don't really think anything of it. You make small adjustments as you're making turns and going over mountains and things like that, and you eventually get to your destination, and you really don't think much of it. And I think life's a little bit like that, right? We're constantly making these adjustments on our journey to get us to the destination. So taking this information, taking where we are in the market, taking where we are personally, okay, where we're making our life adjustments, they're really no different than driving at night. We don't need to have the whole road illuminated for us to get to where we need to go. We just need to have that situational awareness, like driving at night, where we make the minor corrections, and then we find ourselves safely at our destination.
Awesome. So the message of the day: small adjustments. It's fantastic advice, and something I honestly, it's the way I've kind of always operated in my day-to-day life. I take small incremental adjustments, kind of react to what's happening, and not get bogged down in where, the ultimate goal. Take it one step at a time. Awesome. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Change in the Market. Another fantastic episode, Chris. If you found this information helpful, make sure you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're watching us on, and join us back here next week for another episode of Change and the Market.
Good to be with everybody.